Hey guys, and welcome back to the Demon Time channel. This is Demon Time Chris here, and I'm testing out a new video format. I really don't like the whole like zooming in like at 1.8 zoom in because I feel like it turns out really grainy. So I'm trying to test things out so it can come out a lot clearer when I do upload it, have a little bit of a nicer quality. But yeah, today I'm going to be covering the 2022 horror film, The Sleep Experiment. And just to give you guys a little bit of an overview of that movie. So it's kind of like the creepypasta that I covered about the Russian sleep experiment. It has a lot of the same foundations and everything, but the overview of it is that 5 prisoners are volunteering. In this case, they are volunteering to submit themselves into this testing project for the stimulant gas for the British Empire or the British Army. They just have to endure it for 30 days for their freedom. Now, the difference between the movie and the creepypasta, with the movie they kind of flesh it out a little bit more with giving all 5 subjects names and backstories, and it kind of takes a turn as the movie goes on. It doesn't go exactly how the creepypasta goes and how it ends, but pretty much everything else has the same foundations of it. It's a pretty, I would say, okay movie. It feels like this was kind of like a director's first movie in that sense, where a lot of the acting and everything, like you can tell that it's kind of like a director's first movie. So I won't be as harsh to it as I would say Devil's Pass, where the Devil's Pass was more a more established director. You know, it had its beats, but at the same time it could have been better. In this case, it feels like a new person doing this movie, so I don't want to go too hard on it. There's some choices where I feel like it was a little bit pretentious. There were some choices that I felt like could have been a lot better, but overall the movie's enjoyable. It's only an hour and 30 minutes. It's on Amazon Prime. You guys can check it out on Amazon Prime. I believe it's also on Tubi as well. So yeah, I would suggest everybody to check it out. But before I start, like always, please like, comment, subscribe, and as well hit that notification bell for brand new videos. I also noticed a little bit of channel growth ever since I dropped the Russian sleep experiment, so I can tell that people really like creepypastas, so I'm gonna be more in tune to that. So just please, if you have any, just send them my way, good or bad. I'll cover them, and just make sure that that creepypasta is connected to an actual movie, so that way I can watch it first and then give my overall review on it. But yeah, let's start. All right, so the movie starts off with the classic horror trope of being based on true events. All right, so for those of you who watch a lot of horror movies, this is the classic horror movie cliche. The moment that anything is based on true events or based on a true story. We've seen it with Texas Chainsaw. We've seen it with Paranormal Activity. We've seen it with the Blair Witch Project. At this point, just drop it. Like, nothing is based on true. I mean, there's certain things that are based on true events and based on a true story, but it won't be completely told the way it is intended to be told. I know in this channel I'm supposed to connect real life events with the movies that are inspired by those events or have correlation to those events, but yeah, just drop that. I don't like that whatsoever, because if it is based on a true story, which is not, this is not based on any true story, and I know they're gonna be like, oh, you know, that one experiment with all the prisoners inside, that's a totally different experiment. Don't try to like garner an audience and claiming to be true events, because at the end of the day, this movie is based off a creepypasta. It's not based off true events. The Russian sleep experiment never existed, never happened. So yeah, don't do that. So yeah, going back, the movie starts off with the classic horror movie trope of being based on true events. A truck going downhill, speeding through the woods, is heading towards an unknown location with 5 men inside with bags over their heads. A quick shot of a research facility and its sterile environment. The men are escorted down by armed guards to be hosed down and led into a small room. A voice directing them from an intercom states that have been selected to be part of the sleep experiment. The man states in order for their charges to be dropped and be freed from prison, They must stay awake for 30 days and must do everything they tell them, from physical activities to journaling, to monitor the process. There will be an experimental gas filtered into the room that will help them stay awake. And then he states that the date of the experiment began on May 16th, 1961. So, pretty much just like how the Russian sleep experiment started, 5 men go into a room, pretty much told that they are being experimented on this experimental gas to keep them awake for 30 days. If they endure the 30 days, they're pretty much set free. So pretty much the movie is starting to set in motion the same way the creepypasta is being set in motion, with the same premise already. Now it's going to get a little bit more detailed to pad out the time, unlike the creepypasta, because now we'll get to know more about these subjects as the movie goes on. A chyron appears stating it's chapter 1, the investigation, and it shows a car driving down a driveway towards a house with a voiceover of Christopher Sampson, the lead scientist of the sleep experiment, and Detective and Inspector David Maclow, asking Christopher if he has time to chat. Seeing boxes around the house, David asks if he is leaving, but it appears to be Christopher's just clearing out some things. David proceeds to question Christopher, asking if he ever worked for the Portland Down Chemical Defense Establishment, and seemed to ask if he is aware of the current investigation of the human experiments and classified documents that surfaced. Christopher denies the existence of this investigation and is asked by David to have a chat in the police department with another detective, Robert Scott. This is a little PSA for anybody, and I mean anybody who is being questioned by the police. Anyone. If a police asks you for a chat, regardless if you did it or not, ask for a lawyer. And this is when the part comes when it becomes choppy, because during this whole scene I can tell that this movie was made by like a first-time director, or this is probably their second or third film, because the way they act, it's super choppy, because it's like David comes down, he goes up the driveway, he starts talking to Christopher, and it's already like David talks, Christopher has a response. David talks, Christopher has a response. David talks, Christopher has a response. It's like there's no like nuance or pauses or anything, and it gets a little bit more pretentious as the movie goes on, because it's like, I don't know if Christopher is trying to be philosophical. I mean, I get why he is the way he is as the movie goes on, but it's like response. There's no pause. It's like they're talking to respond. They're not talking to listen. Like I don't see them like listening to each other. It's weird, but I will continue to explain it as the movie goes on. The two detectives are going to ask a series of questions regarding the experiment, regarding the 5 prisoners, and wants to know why it went wrong. And they will play small recordings they found, starting with day 1. It shows the 5 men examining the room, saying that being in the room is being better in prison, handing out rations of bread. We are introduced to the 5 men: Edward, Luke, Eric, Sean, and Patrick. Sean seems to be a tough guy and immediately states that he's in prison for murder. Eric is shy and quiet and states he is in prison for murder as well. Edward is the gentle giant of the group. His reason for prison is unknown yet. And Luke, cunning, weird, but yet smart, states that he's in prison for not paying taxes. So there's a little running theme right now currently in the movie. Sean pretty much states like, hey, I'm just here because I killed somebody. So Sean is pretty much kind of like a robber. He killed somebody during a robbery attempt or something like that, and that's why he's in prison. And he's really brash, very obnoxious, tries to put everybody in their place and everything. Eric is kind of like soft-spoken, kind of like weird, but yet sheltered, or like to the corner. You see him like chilling in the corner, and people try to like integrate him with card games and things like that, but he's like very odd and very sheltered. Luke is the weird one. Luke is kind of like the British Joker, I guess you could say, if you really think of it. If you ever watch this movie, he's always that condescending asshole. He will always have a smart remark. He is very unlikable, but then again, he's in prison for tax evasion, which is weird because he is so smart, but yeah, he got caught for tax evasion. I don't know. And then Ed is very interesting. Edward, he is kind of like this soft-spoken, gentle giant. He's kind of like Hagrid from Harry Potter in a way. He has that kind of like that feel of like the protector. And yeah, they're odd bunch, but they seem to get along in a weird ass way. But yeah, let's continue. It cuts back to Christopher stating the reasons he picked the men was because he felt like they could endure the project's goal and wanted them to cut their sentencing, dangling freedom in front of their faces. A montage of the prisoners shows them reading, eating, playing cards, and writing in their journals. Day 2 arrives and Sean explains how he went from Ireland to England and the odd jobs he took before being locked up. But he is interrupted by Luke asking if his father has ever physically abused him at one point. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Like the way this movie, like the way the acting is weird. Because it's like Sean is being like this brash, obnoxious person, like telling his life story about how he went from Ireland to England. He took up all these odd jobs. He wanted to become an actor. His mother was so proud of him. And then all of a sudden, Luke cuts in and starts saying, "It's like, hey, did your dad ever like beat you? Like, did your dad ever beat you to death or some shit like that? Like, ever physically harmed you?" And it's like nuance. There's no nuance. It's just like, I don't know how to fucking explain it. It's just, it cuts to response. Like there's no listening. There's no nothing. One person talks, immediately there's a response from a different character. It's like if they're waiting for their lines to end to then talk. There's no pause. There's no nothing. They'll just talk and then just immediately a response. And also, I forgot to tell you guys this. The difference between the movie and the creepypasta. The two main differences are, the three main differences are, number one, all the subjects have names. That's pretty obvious because I already introduced you to each and every subject. Number two, it is cut up by chapters. And number three, it's also cut up by the days. I would say that this is probably the most positive points that I can give to this movie, because in the creepypasta, it's all concurrent. Like all the information is coming from like the stories that like there's no researcher that you can kind of like grip upon. And I know the Russians in the stories are the bad guys. The subjects are just turned evil. Not evil, but they're like they get fucked up towards the end, but it's because of the whole experiment itself that's why they end up the way they end up. But in this movie, it's cut up by chapters, and with the chapters, it's a lot easier to see the progression of the subjects as time goes on. But yeah, that's probably like the number one positive that I can give to them, in the sense of like understanding the story. My main gripe is just the acting, but then again, like I stated, it seems to me that this is a director's first time or second or third time filming a movie from a literally a 15 to 20 minute creepypasta or a short story. So kudos to them on that end. So Luke continues to talk and start to tell the story of his mother and how she was paralyzed from the neck down, stating he always wanted to be hugged by her and that he is grateful that having her and the ability to walk and talk and demand Sean to stop complaining. All right, so with Luke, you're going to see that a lot with Luke. He's going to bring up his mom any chance he gets. This is kind of like the pretentious side of things, because Sean was only talking about like how he went from Ireland to England, the weird shit that he did, and then he got locked up, which is, I would assume, a very common thing in being in prison. I have never been to prison, but I know people who have been in prison, and you know, they always ask like, oh, what you're in for. They pretty much give you the rundown, or they'll run the papers to make sure that you're clean. But other than that, like it's spick and span. It's straightforward. Like, I'm here for this is what I'm doing, this is the amount of time I'm doing it, and then I'll be out if things go good. Luke, on the other hand, takes it to like this poetic sense where he needs to talk about his mother and his upbringing and everything, and he's gonna bring it up a lot in the movie. And I'm not saying that that's a negative, but I'm just saying the introduction towards that so early in the movie, it's weird, because now the viewer sees Luke like, it's like, okay, you're here for tax evasion. What the fuck does this have to do with your mother, weirdo? Like, he's a fucking weirdo. But yeah, let's keep going. It cuts back to the detectives and asking why Christopher chose psychopaths for the experiment and helped them describe what's a psychopath. Christopher states that a psychopath can't feel sympathy but can feel lonely. They are very isolated, dishonest, show lack of guilt, manipulative, reckless risk-taking, use of charm and charisma to manipulate others, and mimic feelings present to seem normal to others. I haven't really touched upon psychopathy yet on this channel, but I can go back to what the BTK video was, my very first video, so please check it out. So basically, not psychopaths. I don't feel like I feel comfortable calling people psychopaths, because I feel like that's an outdated term, but I feel like people with that type of condition do kind of present themselves in the sense of like mimicry. Like, they'll mimic emotions around people. They, like, if everybody's in a funeral and everybody's feeling sad, like, a person with that type of condition would feel like, okay, I should be sad because everybody around me is sad. They can't emote normally in a way. I don't know if they're actually manipulative. I haven't done the research on that, but I would assume that they do have tendencies to further themselves in regards of others, if that makes any sense. But the way that Christopher says it in this part seems very cold, very calculated, very logical. But then again, he is a scientist, so it would make sense for him to think of these men as that, especially being experiment subjects. So I would assume, being a scientist, he has to detach himself from, the actual subjects and not see the emotion side. I can't really do that because I don't like to hurt people. So even if I were a scientist and were to conduct experiments, I'll probably end it the moment it started. Like, I can't do this shit. Give it to somebody else. If any scientists are out there and know why it's beneficial to detach emotions when it comes to that, hey, let me know. But personally, I can't do that shit. I can't hurt people. But yeah, he's very cold, very calculated, very logical in this sense. And you can kind of tell that he really doesn't care for the well-being of these men, and knowing that these men are going to be sleep deprived for 30 fucking days, and it's only been day 2. So yeah, for pleasure, they torture people and animals to feel something, but people won't know who they are. The scene cuts to them being ordered by the man in the intercom to line up and do push-ups as their name is being called. A voiceover of Edward writing in his journal, showing empathy towards Eric, how Sean is obnoxious, Luke is a weirdo, and Patrick seems nice, and that his main goal is to endure these 30 days to see his family. David asks, what is the purpose of the gas being used in the experiment? Christopher answers that it's used to keep soldiers alert and eliminate sleep to conduct their operations. So just like the Russian sleep experiment, the gas is just being used to keep soldiers awake. So this is military use. Instead of using actual soldiers, why not use these inmates to test upon them? Because as a society, I don't know what it is with society when it comes to prisoners. Like, if these people are not human, I understand that some of them do deserve to be in prison. And I do understand that some of them, no matter how much reform you give them, they cannot be part of normal society. But then again, they are human lives. We should treat them as humans. And I don't know. Like, it's like I feel like experimentation is another level. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving prisoners any type of experimental drugs or anything like that, so I can better the military, knowing damn well that I know somewhere in this world there's a prison doing that shit, like under the table. Like, I don't know. To me is that, but yeah, again, very cold, very calculated, very. I understand the logistics of it, but like, I don't know. It's kind of iffy. Like, they're humans. They're men. You know, they just want to go home. Why exploit that? But sure, why not? David asks why they added the journals if, based on the record, it was only physical being reported on the record. Christopher states that, being a psychologist, that he wanted to know the mental changes of being sleep deprived for multiple days. David and Robert doubled down and asked Christopher why he wanted to work at the facility, and Christopher states that he wanted to do the greater good for the British Empire. Robert accuses Christopher of designing the experiment and show records of other experiments. So apparently this isn't Christopher's first go around in conducting experiment. Robert and David are just applying pressure on all sides. And this is kind of like a little bit of a plot hole. I don't think they realized they did this so early in the movie, because this is gonna come back, and it really confused me. Like, it didn't really confuse me. It was like it was kind of like a missed detail. But Robert and David just straight up accuse Christopher of doing other experiments. So this isn't his first go around. Like, he has conducted these types of weird ass experiments before, and it shows that Christopher is very cold, very calculated, very logical, and is willing to do anything for the British Empire and the good of the army, or whatever branch of military that he wants to conduct. Christopher states that he was young and just wanted to impress his superiors, but the scene cuts to the men, and it's announced that it's day 3 as they partake on a card game. Luke wants the loser to drink from a cup filled with urine and other prisoners. Obviously weird and disgusting. Edward starts talking to Sean, wanting to know why he is participating in the experiment, and Sean basically states his desire to start over from the rough upbringing he had. Edward states that he doesn't belong in prison and that he is innocent, but it cuts in with voiceovers of Christopher stating that all criminals suffer from traumatic experiences from their past, but states that those experiences don't matter. He just wants results on his experiment. Edward starts telling the story of his sudden capture, stating that his daughter never came home one night, and it shows a glimpse of Edward attacking and strangling a man, but soon cuts out, and shows David and Robert applying pressure on Christopher, saying that there was a missing tape in the collection that they have, and Christopher isn't telling the whole story. At the same time, it shows Luke questioning Patrick on why he's always writing in his journal. Patrick states that he has a lot on his mind and needs to write. As David and Robert state that the procedure that Christopher put in place hurt the 5 men, it shows that they were more for show, and Christopher just simply ignored all forms of safety. Basically, that motherfucker just basically just let safety and protocol all out the motherfucking window. He did not give a fuck whatsoever, as you can tell. You know, he doesn't give a fuck about their traumatic experiences. He has conducted these experiments before. He basically called them all psychopaths. He dumbed down everything at a logical sense to kind of like disassociate himself emotionally, knowing that sleep deprivation hurts people. Like I stated in the last video with the Russian sleep experiment, if you go days without sleep, past 120 days, your mind and your body will go down a physical decline. So Christopher, being a psychologist, a scientist, and pretty much the head guy in this whole procedure, he should have known that. You shouldn't need an experiment to know that. Like, Christopher pretty much took safety out the window and just pretty much watched them suffer for these days that goes on, and did not do anything in his power, because he had all the power to stop it at any point. And for now, based on the information that Sean and Edward gave from their testimonies or whatever, their confessions that they're talking in the room, you kind of feel for them, because one of them just wants to start all over. And the other one feels like he's innocent. Even though he killed the man, he only did it because his daughter never came back home, which any parent might do in case if that situation were to ever arise. So for the most part, the movie is humanizing these subjects. Eric right now, he's pretty much quiet. All we know is that he is just there for murder. And the thing about Eric is that he doesn't really talk a lot, but like the guy the actor who does Eric's role, he plays a weird shy guy so well, and it's kind of creepy, because that's where all the creepiness is coming from Eric. Luke is kind of like the fucking Joker. He is just like, he wants people to drink cups full of urine. He likes to talk about his mother. So it's like, yeah, but for now, for the most part, the movie really does humanize all 5 of the guys. Patrick, we don't know a lot yet, but based on the little information given in the beginning of the movie, he's just writing on his journal, and we don't know why he's there, but he seems like an okay guy. So you see the humanization of him. As Sean continues to ask Eric why he is in prison, a scene with Robert shows him angry, stating having 5 men who are all convicted of murder and attempted murder is insane, and the camera shows a picture of a bloody body face down on the floor in the same room the prisoners are in. Christopher gives the audience some backstory of Eric, saying that he was a bullied man and lived a miserable life, and he strangled a man to death. Eric is now shown on screen with red puffy eyes covering his ears, and it shows that it's day 4. I don't know if I ever stated this. So in the movie, there's going to be church bells. So when the church bell hits, it's a new day. So every 24 hours they hear a church bell, that's a day. So right now, currently, we're on day 4. Eric is now at a state of hyper focus, noticing Edward's breathing, Patrick's coughing, and Sean's chewing. Patrick's coughing gets worse, and as Eric starts to freak out, they remove Patrick from the room, but in between the hysteria, Luke is looking rather pensive, trying to figure something out. A chyron appears, and it shows Chapter 2. The imposter. Day 5 is shown, and the man on the intercom informs the men that they are bringing back Patrick. Patrick begins to explain the reason why he started coughing was because of a bad reaction towards the gas and that he has asthma. Luke, not believing in Patrick's explanation, starts to question Patrick, saying what kind of asthma he has, since there's apparently 6 types of asthma. Yeah, so apparently Luke is also a fucking know-it-all. And I did not know that there's 6 types of asthma. I should Google that, but I won't. Okay, let's go. Sean asks what they did to him while he was gone, and Patrick quickly answers that they just ran some tests and gave him some medicine, but still kept him awake. Luke interrupts, saying that he had a bad reaction towards the gas. Why is he back? Should have been kicked off the project. Patrick quickly answers that they lowered the gas, but Luke rebutted, saying lowering the gas isn't enough. The gas is still present and it will still cause a reaction. Patrick, fed up on the interrogation, says if Luke knows so much, he should work for the scientists. Yeah, I think that Luke hit the fucking nail on the head on this one. If you have an allergic reaction or have some sort of asthma attack towards the gas that it's in the room, lowering it or putting more gas into the room wouldn't help. The gas is still present, so that means you'll react to it, meaning there's a possible asthma attack later on in the future. So Luke got Patrick pinned down on this end, and you can tell how smart Luke is. He is somewhat like me in the sense of I would say that Luke is pretty much the dark side of who I am, in the sense of he is a treasure trove of useless information, because I did not know that there were 6 types of asthma. But unlike Luke, I am a free man and I'm not in prison. You bitch. Alright, keep going. A voice of Robert and Dave cuts in, saying whose decision was it to divert and break protocol? Christopher states everyone in the facility broke protocol. but it was his decision to choose murderers as subjects, gave them journals to see their mental state, and designed the experiments, although he states it was for all good intentions. Robert applies more pressure, saying that this is enough evidence to put him in jail, but Christopher soon realizes that this interrogation is more personally tied rather than professionally tied. This is true because as the scene goes on, Robert and Dave are more amped up, but I don't know how the British police force is run. I don't believe interrogations should go this way. All I know is if the police here in America, I don't know how it is over there in Britain, but over here in America, if they start interrogating me in this form or fashion or try to instigate that I did some sort of a crime, the only words that will come out my mouth the moment I sit down is lawyer or I want a lawyer. I will not continue. This movie would not happen. This hour and 30-minute movie would not happen. It would have been, hey, would you come down? Am I arrested? Like, that's the only way you're bringing me down. If I'm arrested. If I'm not arrested, I'm not coming down. But also, even if they do manage to bring me down, I'm going to sit there in that interrogation room, and the moment they want any form of information from me, I would have just said lawyer. That's it. Done. I will keep my mouth shut till my lawyer is present. This whole thing of like running tapes and having this evidence and blah 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 blah, that's great. That's phenomenal. I'm not talking till my lawyer is present. So I don't know what the hell is Christopher doing. I don't know if it's because he finds some sort of pleasure in it, but him being a smart man and him knowing that he has this incriminating amount of evidence mounted on him, he should have known to call a lawyer. But then again, I don't know how the British, police force even work over there. I don't know if it's like, because I know there's some countries out there that are guilty and then proven innocent. Like, you are automatically guilty and you have to be innocent. Like Italy happened that way in this famous case. I forgot the girl's name, but she was guilty and then had to be proven innocent, which is odd. But yeah, that's how they work. So I don't know if in the British side of things, in the judicial or the in the justice side of things, I guess you can put it that way. I don't know if they run it where you're guilty automatically and you have to prove your innocence with evidence and statements like that. But yeah, I would have just said lawyer. This movie would not happen if I was there. But let's keep going. As Christopher starts to add all the anger and pressure that the two detectives has given him, he deduces that one of the prisoners is the father of Detective Robert. Apparently, the experiment physically scarred Robert's father to the point that he looked like a monster. Remember that detail. Because this detail is, I won't say important, but it's a question that I want to ask. Like, I wish I can ask the director this. Maybe it's a detail that he missed later on in the movie, but yeah, sure. But yeah, remember this detail. Date 8 arrives and Luke asks Sean if he would do anything for his mother and starts to ramble on what lengths he is willing to go to protect her. And he believes he is doing this experiment for the love of his mother and admits that he is there for murder and not tax evasion. I mean, okay. I mean, if everybody there is there for murder, because now we know that everybody's there for murder. Yeah, bro, like, just say you're there for murder. Everybody in the room is a fucking murderer. So just claim that he's a murderer. But he's so weird about it. Like, I don't know if that's a form of protection. But then at the same time, it's like, it's whatever. Like, even if you're there for, like, I would say kidnapping or arson or something crazy like that, the whole premise of the project is once the 30 days are up, you're free. But here's the weird shit. If those 30, let's say they do endure those 30 days, right? The 30 days happen, bam, 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 bam. You're sleep deprived, whatever, but you made it. 30 days happen. you're scot-free. Would these guys commit murders again? Because from the knowledge that I know, once a killer kills, they will continue to kill. But I find it fascinating that one guy wants to start all over, the other guy wants to be with his family, and he, now Luke, wants to protect his mother. So they're adding a little bit more details on that. But yeah, let's keep going. He continues to explain that he killed people, including children, for the sake of protecting his mother. Edward confronts Luke in anger, but Luke just rambles on. He begins to explain that a group of kids threw stones at his disabled mother's house and that angered him. He then continues saying that he spotted a little girl with a bright yellow school bag and decides to stalk and wait for her outside the school till he eventually kidnaps her and throws stones at her naked body till she dies. The intercom cuts in as the people in the facility notice that everything is getting intense between Edward and Luke, and demands that they put their hands against the wall, and the scene ends. So not only do we get information on Luke's behalf in the sense that he's there for murder, which I don't understand why not just say it in the first place. Everybody there is there for murder. Eric pretty much said it in day one, yeah, I'm here for fucking murder, and so did Sean. But not only did Luke say that, he is also a sadistic bastard and is willing to kill children. So he's a child murderer. You know, again, he's kind of like the Joker in the way, in that weird ass way. But a Chiron appears, stating it's chapter 3, the diary. Day 12 is shown, and Patrick is having another asthma attack, while Eric is biting his fingers and seems more distraught. Eric begins to tap on the glass to talk to the scientists, but soon say that they are gone and sits back down. It's weird. Like, this part, it starts getting a little bit creepy, because as Eric is like hyper fixated on everything, he's biting his fingers, but I don't feel like he's like biting his fingernails. He's literally like biting his fingers, where I don't know if you ever like hit the bed of your fingernail or some shit like that. Like, you see all that red, like that's all over Eric's hands and shit. And also, like, you hear this weird whispering in the background, which I believe, like, in the Russian sleep experiment, they do talk about like voices. Now, this is the interesting part. They keep it kind of like ambiguous, just like the creepypasta, because it's like you don't know if this is like their brain, like pretty much going to mush. Because right now, day 12, this is past the 120 hour mark on sleep deprivation. Like, you don't know if these voices are your brain pretty much melting, or this is another, you know, thing in the ether or in the further, like I like to say, from Insidious. Like, is there something communicating to Eric to act the way he's acting, and this is his like natural response to be like, oh, they're gone? Because he says they, but the way he says they is like, they're gone, and then he just sits down and just crawls back into like this fetal position, which is like fucking creepy. And then it becomes even more creepy. Eric, again getting riled up, looks around and gets worse, starts banging and banging on the glass that he wants to be let out, and starts screaming louder and louder till he coughs up blood and is unable to scream anymore. So in the Russian sleep experiment, there was a point where one of the subjects screams so loud that he has his vocal cords torn out. And then seeing it, like actually like seeing it in the movie, you see him scream because he is screaming his ass off to be let out till he just starts coughing up blood, and then he smears it a little bit on the window. Like, it's so fucking, I don't know, like not weird, but scary, because it's like he is literally like devolving into this like this paranoid child, I guess you can say. Yeah, they really captured that part of the sleep experiment. So all the creepiness of that creepypasta, you see it a lot with Eric. Eric is pretty much the embodiment of all 5 subjects of that story, which is really cool, and good job on the actor on that part, because he does play this shy, creepy creepy guy in the movie. Images of the other men are shown acting like they don't even notice the mayhem. Christopher cuts in and states that he says by day 12 they all started to hallucinate, while Sean is shown freaking out about his mother. Yeah, this part is very fucking creepy because Sean just gets up and starts screaming like a motherfucker, like pleading, asking for forgiveness. But no, at this point, you don't know why he's asking for forgiveness. He's just yelling to be let out. He's just throwing shit and everything, like yelling at the window, like he wants to be out. He wants to be out. And I wouldn't blame him, because if I were in his shoes, not only I would never partake in the fucking experiment. I don't care if I'm in prison for life or I'm there for a couple of years. Yeah, the moment they say, yeah, we're going to sleep deprive you for X amount of days, I'm not doing it. I'd rather just stay in my jail cell. But seeing that, like, I would ask to be let out if I was in their shoes. Like, I will yell, I will scream, probably by day 3. I don't know if you ever been awake past a couple set of hours. Like, I'll, like, that head buzz. I couldn't fucking do it. So doing it for 12 days, even with the gas on, yeah, I commend them on that part. But yeah, Sean starts fucking freaking out and everything. Luke is shown maniacally laughing. Edward is going through emotions of anger and happiness. And Eric is just throwing random shit on the wall. This part was fucking funny because while everybody's like going through it, Eric just picks up a fucking can and just chucks it at a wall and just stares at it. Like he just basically just like Barry Bonds the fuck out of a can and just like fucking looks at it. And this whole thing, these people are going through it, and Eric is just throwing cans at the fucking wall. And Patrick, what's Patrick? Oh, well, not only does he have an asthma attack and he's not in the actual scene, I would imagine that if Patrick was there, he'll just be in the corner just writing in his fucking journal. But yeah, like you start seeing the involvement, the what's the opposite of progression? Whatever is the opposite of progression, because I can't remember the word right now. You see that with them, just like they degress. Yeah, they're devolving into this like paranoid shell of what they were, because even though that they're all murderers, they were kind of somewhat charismatic. And Ed is scary. He reminds me, like at this point, he starts to remind me of that guy from Outlast. I don't know if you guys ever played that video game, where it was this big giant guy with no lips and he starts wandering around the asylum. He starts reminding me of that, because he will get angry and then he'll be happy. Like, it's weird. And then he'll get angry again. And Luke is the fucking Joker, like I stated before. Like, that motherfucker is just laughing his ass off. But yeah, like now you're getting the elements of horror. And I wish I would have seen it a little bit sooner, but that's just a personal preference on my end. But for now, like they're all doing a great job. All the actors are doing a great job on this end. Sean is back to hallucinate about his mother, and she is begging that Sean to come back home. And Sean pleading to his mother for forgiveness. And out of the shadow, Sean's mother is shown with a noose around her neck, saying that he is the reason she killed herself. Sean begins to scream in terror as he fades into darkness. This scene was fucking wild, because not only that guilt, that guilt of, I don't know, I have never lost anybody. I have never lost anybody from that outcome, and I would assume that's very traumatic. Like, you don't want to lose anybody from that. And anybody going through those feelings, I would suggest to get help or reach out, to help you with that condition. But having that feeling that the reason why your loved one killed themselves because of you would be traumatizing. And seeing that figure just pop out of the shadow and then blames you, like, you are the reason why I am in this condition. You are the reason why I'm no longer alive. I would scream too. And then the way they shot it, where it was like he was in darkness and then he fades into darkness, you could kind of tell, like I can tell that it means that his mind is gone. He is no longer the same Sean that was in day one. It took him 12 days to not be Sean anymore. And I say, like, this part, the movie hits really hard. It's not as emotional. Like, it's emotional, but at the same time, it's scary, because that is something that like, if I were to encounter that, like, I would have fucking lost it. I would have just, sat in a corner and not, interact with anybody anymore. But day 13 is shown, and everyone is shown sitting down in random parts of the room, quiet and not moving. Meanwhile, the man on the intercom asks them to go against the wall again. They seem not to comprehend or chose to ignore the orders. So at this point, the prisoners are very distraught. They have been tortured. They all start to hallucinate, and then they're just quiet. They're all in random parts of the fucking room, sitting down, crouched down, and they don't give a fuck anymore. Like the guy in the intercom is just barking orders, and at this point, I don't know if they don't have enough energy, but it's like, where the fuck are they going? They're not going to do anything. So it's just like, fuck it, just bring in Patrick, because Patrick is coming back. And Patrick, even though he's been there for 12 days and has been awake for 12 days, he seems fine. Like he's looking at these guys like, what the fuck happened to you guys? And he's not really playing the part where it's like, well, I'm awake too, and I haven't even went through all the stuff, so I think the gas is still working on me type shit. He's not really helping himself in this situation, because based on that, Patrick is thrown back into the room after the asthma attack. He looks at the men and proceeds to sit down and wants to write in his journal. Patrick notices that the diary is replaced by a random book, and Christopher cuts in saying that no one was watching Luke, which was a big mistake. Yeah, Patrick fucked up on this part, because now a big reveal is going to happen. A scene is shown during Eric's freakout, and during the ordeal, Luke took advantage of it and replaced the diary with a random red book. A flashback is shown of Patrick being interviewed by a bearded Santa Claus and Christopher, and he begins to explain that he is there to monitor the behavior of the prisoners, but on days 4, 12, and 21, he has to fake an asthma attack to evaluate the physical and mental deterioration and shot with adrenaline. Patrick accepts, but under the condition that his family will be taken care of. So, Patrick is a mole. Patrick is pretty much, he's a mole, but not a mole, if that makes any sense. He is technically not a prisoner. He is a researcher, and he is just there to monitor these 4 guys to see how they're doing, write down in his journal, and fake an asthma attack, because he is kind of like the neutral in an experiment. You know how there's always like what the experiment is, there's the controlled and then the other 2 outcomes. That's Patrick. Patrick is the controlled. So what would happen if we take somebody who's going down the same road of being awake, they take him out, they evaluate him, they give him 12 hours of rest, because that's also what they do. They give him 12 hours to rest and then just send him back in and then evaluate everybody else. But the thing is, that's even more insane. Patrick is inside a room, because this is also scary. Patrick is inside a room with murderers that they're all going crazy. You saw Eric just pretty much scream his lungs out to the point that his vocal cords are no longer existent. You have Sean going through this deep, dark dive in his mind, trying to justify why his mother died. You got Ed, who's pretty much jumping back and forth of emotions from happiness to fucking anger. And then you got Luke, who is just laughing like a madman, pretty much figured out Patrick's scheme and replaced his book. So you can tell how cunning Luke is. And he pretty much told everybody in the room that he is willing to kill anybody, regardless of who you are, in the name and protection of his mother. So that is terrifying for Luke. But at the same time, here's the thing, right? Here's a gripe of this movie when it comes to Patrick. If you know that if you're going to be the top researcher in this, in the sense of like you're going to be near these test subjects, act a little bit more, I don't know, act more like them, in the sense of like, if you see them going crazy, go crazy, but act it out, even though you're getting extra 12 hours of sleep during that time. He just comes in, he sees everybody like crouched down on the floor and just acting weird, and he's like, oh, he's all jolly and shit. Not jolly, but like, you get what I'm saying. Like he just butts in like oh my god, what's going on? Like, act like them, like act disoriented. Don't just come in, because also I understand they tell him pretty much to sit next to the exit, to sit next to the door, fake the asthma attack so that way they can take him out. But that also causes suspicion, because that is suspicious. Like, why is it that you have an asthma attack, you leave, they wait a day or two, they bring you back, the first thing you want to do is sit down and grab your journal? I would have, like, after the first day, if I was Christopher and I had Patrick, I'd be like, hey dude, I understand I told you like to be near the door and to write down and take notes and everything, but try to like implement yourself with the crew so that way that you can feel more believable. Don't just sit there and just write, because you're just pretty much giving yourself away. And that's basically what Patrick did. He just gave himself away. Since day one, he gave himself away. And I kind of noticed the first time I watched this movie that Patrick seemed odd. Patrick seemed like why is he not like interacting with any of the other guys? Even Luke with his weird ass, he's kind of like interacting with everybody. But Patrick is kind of like in the corner just writing down things. And the lame ass excuse of, I have a lot of things on my mind. Really, motherfucker? What are you doing? What are you, like, this isn't like fucking like, I don't know if you ever saw like the movie Notorious, where like Biggie Smalls starts writing on his journal. Like, you ain't writing raps. Like, you better be writing some fire ass raps. You better be writing a clean ass 16, like poetry or some shit, you know, or something like in a Gucci Man sense. Like, I remember when Gucci Man went to prison, he came out and he came out when he doesn't have like that lean gut anymore, and he started like spewing out poetry that he wrote while he was in prison. Like, at least that, give me a list of poetry, because once you see what's inside the fucking journal, it's like he pretty much gave himself away. So yeah, bro, like you did not give yourself any form of justice when it came to this. Before he enters the facility, Christopher hands him the diary and tells him to take good notes of the environment and his cellmates, but it cuts in to the present, showing him anxiously turning the pages of the random book. A chyron is shown, and it shows chapter 4, the yellow school bag. Edward is seen hallucinating and hearing crying, and he starts seeing a girl in the corner staring at the wall. Soon, it cuts to Edward hugging the girl, presuming it is his daughter, and on the floor, he sees the yellow school bag with the voiceover of Luke, explaining the murder of the girl he threw stones at. In a moment of clarity, it's shown that Edward lunges at Luke, stating that Luke killed his daughter, but Luke diverts attention towards Patrick. Yeah, like I stated, Patrick did not give himself any justice on this part. You kind of earned it, buddy. I'm sorry. You came in there, you sat down, and you pretty much ratted yourself out without saying anything. Even I knew, like, during the beginning of the movie, yeah, bro, you're probably either A, very antisocial, which I doubt, or B, you're part of the project and you're just there to monitor these 4 other guys. And Luke would have done the same. Like, I would have done what Luke did. That's why I say that Luke is my dark side. But Luke did what I would do. Like, yo, this motherfucker right here is a researcher. Like, he's the snitch. He's the mole. All right, he ain't writing no bars. He ain't writing no poetry. You know, he's not even doing fucking push-ups or anything like that. Like, that motherfucker there, he's part of this facility. Let's cook him. Like, I mean, let's not cook him. Like, we're not fucking cannibals. We're murderers. Come on now. But yeah, like, let's get this motherfucker right here. So, Luke blows Patrick's cover, saying that he's keeping tabs on them and that Patrick is a researcher. Edward reclaims the scene, saying that he doesn't care that Patrick is a researcher and wants to kill Luke for killing his daughter, and starts yelling at the glass to kick out Luke from the project. Luke starts to berate Edward, but Edward claps back at Luke, saying to fuck his disabled whore mother, and Luke doesn't seem to enjoy that. What more can I say, bro? Man, fuck your mom, dog. Straight up. Your mom's a hoe. You know, she's built like a Kia Soul. She got a big ass head. You get what I'm saying? She got no edges. Yo, fuck your mom, bro. I'm sorry. You know, Ed is just speaking facts, dog. You kill kids? Your mom's a hoe. That's real shit. Real shit, real spit. You feel me? Don't hate the player, hate the game, but it is what it is. You Kia Soul built fat back bitch. That's what you deserve, Luke. And Luke is smart, but he is smart. Like, Luke is smart, but Luke is like Luke is also a person that doesn't give himself justice, because what he does next is the most dumb shit thing that I would assume that no one would ever do. Like, he is smart, but he has no common sense, because I don't know what the fuck he was thinking in this next scene. So, Luke begins to ask questions and details about Edward's daughter. Showing how smart he is, he starts to imitate her pleas of help, but Edward has enough and attacks Luke. Look, dog, Luke is like, how do I explain Luke? Luke is like a $120 wet, bro. Edward seems like he could be a linebacker back in the day, or rugby. I don't know, like them Brits, they love fucking rugby and shit. Like, Luke is like scrawny, like maniacal. He's smart, but that motherfucker is smart, but he has no fucking common sense. I would have just kept my mouth shut, because it's like what? Why would you? Like, number one, this man is like distraught. He's sleep deprived, and he obviously has some sort of like trauma of him losing his daughter, and wants the killer to be found so he can kill the killer or bring some sort of justice to his killer. You coming up with this random ass story in the beginning of the fucking film, not in the beginning, but like midway through the fucking film, saying that you do not give a fuck about anybody, is willing to kill children for the sake of protecting your disabled fatback mother, didn't help you, bro. And you know what? You deserve everything that comes with it, because right after this, Edward rips a toilet cover and smashes it on Luke's head over and over, covering him with blood and killing Luke to a bloody pulp. And it's revealed that it's Luke's body shown in the photo. So a full circle moment now. The photo shown in the beginning of the movie turns out to be Luke's body. You ain't that fucking smart, Luke. You feel me? You ain't that fucking smart. You were smart in the whole Patrick scheme. That, I give it to you. But other than that, bro, you and your fatback mother, y'all in, I don't know, I won't say heaven. I don't know. I guess heaven, sure, why not? Let me just throw it out there. God forgives, whatever. But yeah, y'all in the afterlife. You and your fatback unibrow Kia Soul built mother on the afterlife now, because you thought berating a possibly 250-pound man about the murder and disappearance of his kid and then claiming that you did that did not help at all at this point. Edward starts freaking out, saying that he is not a killer, and pleads with the scientists and starts to cover the viewing window with Luke's blood. Patrick freaks out and bangs on the door to be let out. Should have faked a fucking asthma attack, Patrick. You get what I'm saying? You should have faked a fucking asthma attack, bro. They would have let you out. I mean, at the same time, bro, you you watch a 250-pound man just come out of nowhere and just pretty much just pummel this fucking thing, this fucking guy. But he had it coming though too. He really did have it coming, because I would have done the same thing. Like, shut the fuck up. You're not claiming the murder of my kid and think that you're not getting away with it. You're getting these hands or a toilet seat cover. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you. But at this point, it is kind of scary, because rationality is out the fucking window as well. So there is like the risk taking part is hitting every single one of them but Patrick. And now Patrick, being the little fucking mole that he is, and not stating the reason why he's there or pretending to be part of the group, now he's in real danger, and it digresses, I guess, if that's a fucking word. I don't even know if I'm saying the word right. But yeah, it goes to shit as the movie goes on. The scientists on the other side of the viewing glass are trying to figure out how can they get Patrick out of the room now that the prisoners have all gone insane. One lady scientist says that they should use sleeping gas to make them fall asleep and head in there and get Patrick out. Day 15 is shown, and a group of armed guards are racing towards the room. The guard opens the room and it's dark. A POV shot is shown, and the guards notice Luke's lifeless body on the floor. Eric is in his underwear staring at the wall. Sean freaking out and panning back to Eric, but he disappears. Patrick is seen in the corner covered in blood, pointing at something, and shows Eric standing in front of the guards and Edward standing behind one of the guards, and they both attack. This part is scary. This part fucked me up because I did not expect it. And the way that Eric just like, he does kind of like the Blair Witch Project type shit, where it's like he just disappears and then he's in front of you, and then I mean, I know it's coming because I'm not dumb. This is a typical horror trope. The one that really got me was fucking Ed, because I was like, where the fuck is this big motherfucker? He was right behind him the whole time. Like, that part was scary in this part. And the director of this movie, when he does shit, he does it right, bro. He's good, and I want to see more movies that he makes. And but there's some parts that I feel like he needs to work on a little bit, especially when it comes to the dialogue. But yeah, bro, like they nailed the feeling. This is what I wanted to see from the Russian sleep experiment. Obviously, like, if you saw the photos of the Russian sleep experiment, they look all degraded and they're smiling and they're like all curled up and they're all bald and shit and blah blah. Bro, this is a low budget movie. Like, give them that. Like, at least give them this. Like, they're trying. You got the gist of it. You got the gist of it when watching this movie. But hey, bro, this scene killed it. The only thing that I would say, they kind of ruined it, because they do show it in the trailer. That's the thing. They do show like glimpses of the scene on the trailer. I feel like they should have never shown that in the trailer. But then again, that's not their fault, because if you know anything about movies or anything, like another company does trailers. They saw it, it looked good, they slapped it on. But yeah, this part is fucking creepy as shit. They nailed it, because while this is going on, Sean is in the corner just freaking out, asking for forgiveness and shit, and Patrick is just covered up in blood. But yeah, good job. They start ripping and biting and punching the guards. Then suddenly the scene cuts to Edward screaming, covered in blood and tied to a gurney and missing a tooth. Sean asking to be put back into the room, and Eric smiling as it slowly pans out, showing to be one of the recordings of the tape of Christopher's experiment. So at this part was like the most weird part for me, because they never really established that none of the subjects here actually wanted to stay in the room. So in the Russian sleep experiment, right, in the story, it clearly states that they are addicted to the gas. They find some sort of addiction to it. Like in the beginning parts, they start saying like, oh, we don't want to leave, we must remain, like basically saying like, leave us here, we want to be here, we don't want to fall asleep, like this is what we want, right? Sean is saying, put me back in. You see Eric smiling, like that smiling man in the Russian sleep experiment like photo, and fucking Edward is going nuts, and obviously Luke is dead. But they never really established kind of like that codependency with the actual gas, unlike in the movie. Now the movie itself takes this like tonal shift. Now the actual creepypasta is over. Like if you know it from top to bottom, the actual creepypasta is over. It's done for. That's it. Now it takes into like this Hannibal Lecter type Saw ordeal that you're gonna see as the movie goes on, because we still have kind of like, I will say, a final chapter. Well, not a like a final chapter towards the end of the movie. So a Chiron shows again, saying it's chapter 5, the missing tapes. And it shows David and Robert at a bar talking about the investigation and what they need to do with Christopher. David just asks Robert to continue a little bit more with the investigation to see if there's more answers that will lead to evidence in convicting Christopher. The scene cuts to a lady scientist describing a different experiment, saying the subjects were forced to drink seawater and made them so dehydrated that when they completed the experiments, they were brought back into their cells and they started to lick the floor for fresh water after it was mopped. So now it's like, this isn't even a fucking experiment. At this point, this is just fucking torture. So with this little tidbit, it just shows that Christopher is just torturing these people for dumbass reasons, because right now after this, she states that they were trying to make a new desalination to strip the salt from water, and it was unsuccessful. Now, I'm not no fucking hiking expert or anybody who's like an adventurer or anything, but I do believe that these things already do exist. Now mind you, this movie does take place in the 1960s, so I could be wrong and this technology was not made during that time, but like, why force subjects into drinking salt water so you can make up something that can strip the salt water out? Doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't you just, try to strip the salt water and try to see if it's like drinkable in a sense, kind of like present it in, not in glass, but kind of like in different volumes and then give it to them? I don't know. I think there's a proper humane way of doing that. I think you can even test it out without ever drinking it, because all you can do is just look at under like a microscope or some shit and then pretty much figure out like, hey, there's still salt, or hey, there's not enough salt, or things like that. And also, again, this ties back to the beginning part. She states that she was a chemical engineer for Christopher, and David and Robert start saying that there weren't any records of Christopher's involvement, but she states that he designed the project himself. The realization flushes over the detectives, and they realize that Christopher is doing these experiments, causing pain as he finds pleasure in the subject's torture. I may have seen this. Well, take this. How do I say this? Take this information with a grain of salt. I probably was like half asleep, or I probably didn't notice, but I swear to God, I took notes. I really did. They already stated in the beginning of the movie, right? They stated in the beginning of the movie that there were lists of experiments that Christopher has already designed, or speculated that he designed, or participated in. Okay, take note in that. So when this part hits and they realize that Christopher made this saltwater fucking experiment, they're like, oh my God, Christopher's torturing these fucking subjects. No shit, Sherlock. Like, I'm not even a fucking detective, and I kind of know like this guy is just doing it because he likes to torture people. He himself is a fucking psychopath. His mannerisms, the way he thinks things logically, he is one of them pretty much. But like, you guys knew this already. You stated this in the beginning, so why are you guys even surprised? So and I think again, this probably was shot, this scene was probably shot like later, or probably after the main actually storyline of the Russian sleep experiment part. And bro, like you had a piece of paper where with all his experiments, or his speculated experiments. Like, you should know that he probably did this one. It's just more incriminating. You couldn't even convict him with the information with the sleep experiment. So having this scientist tell you like, yeah, he also designed the saltwater one, doesn't incriminate him either, based off what I'm watching with the movie. Like, it doesn't really fucking matter at this point. So I don't know why you guys are surprised. I don't know why they added this oh my God moment in the movie. We kind of figure it out as the audience, but I feel like this was kind of like a mistake in the movie's end. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I probably wasn't paying attention at this point, because it was like, why is this movie? Because also, like, why is this movie continuing? It should have just ended. Like, you gave us a story. They're all dead. I understand what they're trying to do, trying to tie up loose ends with the Christopher and everything, but basically, even with that incriminating evidence, it's substantial. You can't get him convicted, so it's whatever. Now you're adding in the sea salt. It's fucked up, don't get me wrong, but it's not gonna get him fucking convicted. Nothing's gonna happen. So yeah, David is seen at Christopher's house, navigating through the darkness, trying to find Christopher. Passing by halls, David finds a stairwell leading him to a small room with mirrors on the wall. A tape player is placed in the center of the room, having the missing tape 24, and David plays it. Christopher's voice is heard stating it's day 24, and Edward is in critical condition and will die soon due to infection. Christopher wants to conduct a final interview, but Edward tells him to go fuck himself. Good job, Ed. Christopher bargains with Ed to see his family, even though he failed the test by killing Luke. Christopher asks if he ever felt guilty in killing, and Edward responds, no. Hector asks to describe the feeling of killing the guards, and Edward responds that he felt alive. Christopher gets up, ending the interview, but Edward demands to know if Luke killed his daughter. Christopher starts to explain that Luke never killed his daughter, that he was locked up way before the death of his daughter. Christopher continues that Edward's revenge on finding her killer blinded him so much that Luke used the information to get into Edward's head. Christopher states that his actions were for self-gratification and not truly on revenge, but he continues to say that he doesn't play those games because he knows that he is a true murderer. Dun dun dun. Fucking Christopher is a murderer, just like everybody else. You kind of fucking figured, bro. Like, it's not like, I don't know why this plot, because it shifts. It tonally shifts. It shifts. It like the sleep experiment part was really, really good. This part right here with Christopher, I did not really like. You know, I rather had him this cold, calculated guy that just happens to do this fucked up part. Now they centered Christopher into this like Jigsaw / Hannibal Lecter light, like, oh my god, like he's gonna conduct, because now it positions him like he's gonna continue doing these weird fucked up experiments disguised as a scientist, because being a scientist, you have enough chances to fuck up, and as long as you're good with your superiors, nothing's gonna happen to him. Nothing's will ever happen to him, because even with two dipshit fucking detectives, because that's what I'm gonna call them, with all this evidence, you can't convict him, bro. He's protected under the government. Also, here's one thing. I know I don't like to rewrite movies or anything like that, but in this part, it would have been a lot cooler for Edward to figure out that he has some sort of like disassociation of what family is, and it would have been even cooler to figure out that he never had a daughter, and that the girl that he's like hallucinating isn't even like a girl that's associated with him paternally, and he gets like attached and he kills people who actually are like their boyfriends or like their brother. That would have been so cool. Like let's say you have like a boyfriend and he gets attached to this girl, like he builds up this fantasy in his head, and then he attacks the guy thinking that the girl is like his daughter. That would have been amazing. Like a crazy ass reveal, like Edward never had a daughter because he never had a family. He has nobody. He just inserts himself mentally into the lives of these girls, and he has like different girls that he lives through and kills their partner or their brother or their father, and he thinks that he has this weird hero complex. That would have been amazing. But like now it's kind of like, okay, well, Luke never killed his daughter. He pretty much played it up for laughs, but why? Like I think this was just a way to get rid of Luke, so Ed could be more intimidating later on. But now it doesn't really make sense. It would have been a lot cooler if he were to fantasize him and inserting himself into the lives of these kids or these women that he believes that's his daughter. But I don't know, I feel like that was kind of dumb. Like it would have, or just make it like, hey, I just wanted to know, how would it felt like to put the guy who is searching for his daughter's killer to be in the same room with his daughter's killer. That would have been cool to see, like that dynamic. And they had that type of dynamic and everything. This Joker-ish person, this Solomon Grundy built person, just go at it. But like, stripping away Luke just makes him seem more dumber, even though he is not dumb. Like, he's intellectually smart, common sense wise, he just is an idiot. But now stating that Luke never really killed his daughter strips him of just that smartness and is now an idiot because now he died literally for nothing. To prove what? He's taking credit over something for what? It doesn't make any sense. I know serial killers and a lot more killers like Henry Lee Lucas, he takes credit with a lot of murders and everything like that, but yeah, he's not gonna die just to prove the point that he did that murder. I don't feel like he's that type of person to do it. I could be wrong, but he doesn't seem like that type of person. So for Luke to take credit over a murder that he did not commit in the first place, to just die in the hands just so he can be smarter than Edward, is dumb, and it strips away the cunningness and the smartness that he portrays. Who gives a fuck if you know there's 6 types of asthma? Who gives a fuck that your, fat back paralyzed mother is dead and that you're doing it to become a protector? You're just an idiot because you just basically gave enough fuel and fire to a man who really just wants to be with his daughter. And it would have been a lot cooler to figure out that Edward never really had a daughter and that he just inserts himself into the family or into the scenario of these women, thinking that these women are his daughter, when in actuality he's just a lonely person that kills people because he has this weird distorted hero complex. Now also with Christopher, they shift him into this Jigsaw kind of fucking like Hannibal Lecter figure, and I know they're setting it up so that he can be kind of like a prime antagonist for future movies, but they could have just left him as a fucked up scientist, killed Edward, and called the movie off and kept it true to the nature of like the Russian sleep experiment. But no, they got to keep going. And yeah, I know the missing 24 tapes, missing day 24 is essential, quote unquote, for the actual movie, but they could have did it like in the movie the Poughkeepsie tapes, where the killer had a whole array of tapes, but we don't know why. They could have done it that way, but sure, why not? But yeah, he claims that the killing feels great, but he knows that the compulsion will get him, and that once he starts killing, he must continue, although it's frowned upon. He says that he designs the experiments to satisfy his lust for killing, since they're all designed to fail and can be looked at as an accident. Like I stated before, what's better, to work for the government and do a whole bunch of fuck ups? The government does it already. Look at half the fucking politicians. They fuck up all the time and they all keep their jobs. But I fuck up one fucking time. I test positive on one fucking drug test. I'm fucked. I have no job. You got senators and shit giving hand jobs at fucking plays and shit, and they keep their fucking jobs. So why not have a fucking serial killer who likes to kill through the means of fucking experimentation under the government and then make it look like an accident? That's every serial killer's fucking dream, if they're that sadistic and cunning and actually can fucking, take a test. But yeah, he specifically designed the sleep experiment to show the true nature of different killers once a basic need is stripped, and shows the different scenarios of each cellmate. So in this one, you kind of have like a montage of every single person, except for Patrick, obviously, because he's a mole. He was a researcher. So with Sean is pretty much angry as fuck, like has somebody in a chokehold with with a knife, like pointing at the knife. With Eric, it shows him strangling a person, but he's like smiling and grinning and everything, like finding kind of like sort of satisfaction in killing people, since he's so like meek and he's so like bullied, so he finds joy in killing. With Edward, obviously he's attacking the man from earlier, trying to find his daughter's kidnapper / killer. And with Luke, like I've always stated, that he was kind of like this Joker-esque figure. He's like in a tunnel and he ties up this guy, kind of does the Clockwork Orange, where he kind of like strips open their fucking eyelids, grabs a saw and saws like right in the bridge of the nose where the eyes are at. And oh my fucking god, that here's the thing, like I don't give a fuck how high budget or low budget of the movie is. You play around with fucking eyes, freak me the fuck out. I don't understand why. I don't get it. The movie could be ass, but the moment people touch eye, oh my fucking god, that shit, ugh. It's whatever. That shit grosses me out. I cringe when I saw that. So when I saw that and then he just places the fucking saw in the nose, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, you see the scenarios of all the cellmates, and then it cuts back to Christopher explaining the meaning of the psychopath again, which now mirrors his actions of the experiment as he has conducted over the years. And a scene is shown of Christopher overlooking the city, suggesting that he will continue his lust for murder. Credits roll. And that is the end of the sleep experiment. So let me take everything that I said within this, I don't know how long video, and pretty much mash it up as much as I could possibly can in pros and cons. So pro, it's an hour and 30 minutes, good runtime. It's faithful enough to the Russian sleep experiment. I won't say faithful, but I will say the solid foundation is there. The solid foundation is there. Even though I stated that the dialogue is a little choppy, I consider it kind of like an old car. You'll notice it at first, but as the movie progresses, you know, the oil is going through the actual car and it starts moving smoothly. Same thing with this movie. The acting is choppy. Everybody's kind of just talking to talk. And then as the movie progresses and as the, you know, weird shit starts to happen, it's less noticeable. And then it kind of gets its groove. It kicks its groove in the middle part of everything. The way the movie is chopped up into chapters and then the days and everything, I think it's a plus. I really like that aspect of it. It's more cohesive since in the Russian sleep experiment, there's not really like a log or like day 1 or day 2, day 3. You kind of just know how everything progresses because they will tell you like in the 15th day this happened, but like in the movie you show like day 4 is a lot different than day 1, that's different than day 12, that's different than like day 15, where they all go berserk inside that fucking room and pretty much murk some of the guards. But yeah, that's a pro. Another pro is you get to know these subjects. They humanize them, even though they're all fucking killers except for Patrick. You kind of know their backstory, but it's not, I don't know if they were trying to make them seem like deceptive or anything, like, oh my god, should I believe them or not? Like, obviously not. If they all say they're murderers and I'm there, I'm like, I'm not trusting any of you guys. I'm sitting in a corner eating my bread and playing solitaire. But yeah, they humanize like the subjects and everything. All right, the cons. Big con for me is the tonal shift towards the end. They should have just kept it with the Russian sleep experiment. Just kept it like, you know, Russian sleep experiment. Christopher kills the last, you know, subject. End of movie. Done. But no, they don't do that. They go from Russian sleep experiment to, oh my god, like Christopher is this big, you know, bad guy who does all these other experiments. You know, he's a Jigsaw. He's you know, he's a Hannibal Lecter. He is this mastermind. He's the collector. Like they depict him like that. Like, but in all actuality, he's just a serial killer that just happens to work for the government, and the government isn't really gonna look at, you know, his accidents. So that whole subplot is weird. Another con that I would say about this movie is the part where Sean was asking to be put back into the room. That part I did not really like. They never established a codependency with the gas. Sometimes it doesn't feel like the gas really doesn't do anything. They'll mention it, but like the gas itself doesn't really play a big part in the movie, which is weird. So for him to be begged to be put back in when they didn't really establish that codependency, I think is kind of off. And I feel like it's kind of lazy, like, oh, I forgot this is part of the Russian sleep experiment. Let's mention the gas again, because that's what I feel like the movie does sometimes. So like he'll mention the gas, and it's like, yeah, because this is part of the creepypasta. But yeah, based on true events, this did not happen. There's probably somebody doing this right now somewhere, maybe here, maybe in like another country. Because who knows? Our government is very shady, and I don't believe anything that they say to me. But if it actually happened, I doubt it. I absolutely doubt it. Yeah, the Patrick's fate. Like one moment they're like, oh yeah, he got scarred up. The project kind of like scarred him up. He looks like a monster, and then they left it to a point where it's like, did he die? Like, is he dead or what? Is he alive? Because that doesn't make any sense. He was alive technically, but they all died. So yeah, his fate is kind of like confusing in a way. Oh, and Luke. I feel like Luke, they wasted Luke. Mind you, I don't like this guy, but like, which is a good thing for the actor, because that means he did a good job for me not liking the dude. But yeah, I feel like they wasted Luke. The whole like, oh, you know, I'm this maniacal, cunning, smart treasure trove of useless information and blah, 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 blah. Taking the credit of killing Edward's daughter and then stripping that away, saying that he didn't really kill, to just die, and that doesn't make any sense. There's no end goal in that. Either you make him the killer of Edward's daughter, or make him a threat towards the researchers. Like if he were to learn more information on the actual research on his own, because he seems very smart and he seems very capable, and become kind of like an adversary of the researchers and like the actual like subjects in the room. Like I felt like he could have been more of a threat, but no, they just wasted him because they needed a body so he can look cool on the fucking photo or whatever. But yeah, I feel like they wasted Luke on that end. But yeah, the movie overall is really good. It's good. I feel like you guys should give it a chance. It's not 100% like it's not 100%, but I say give it a chance, especially if you like the Russian sleep experiment. Give it a chance. I'm not gonna go too harsh on it. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. You know, and this is just me being generous, because I do feel like that this is the director's like third or first or second type. It feels like that. It feels like kind of like when John Carpenter made like Halloween, where you kind of see like the cigarette smoke, or you see things like that, like the wrench on the hand is like that. Like there's really good moments in this movie, is that if you really pick apart some of the things in it, like it's like it falls apart. I feel like they misuse like Luke. I feel like they could have made Edward a little bit more daunting, because he still has kind of like this gentle giant persona even after this whole ordeal of killing the guards and shit. I feel like you still kind of get that feeling. If they were to reveal that he never had a daughter, like I stated before, like he never had a daughter, he fantasizes it, and he just inserts himself into women's lives thinking that he's this heroic protector or whatever, that would have been scary as fuck. But no, you know, he is a father who will never know the who will never know the killer of his daughter, or will never find justice. You know, who will never find justice and pretty much went batshit insane, killed somebody, and pretty much fucked himself over. Yeah, bro. Like, the good parts is a solid foundation of the sleep experiment, of the Russian sleep experiment. I mean, but yeah. 6 out of 10. I recommend you guys watch it at least once. And before this video ends, just like I stated before, please like, comment, subscribe, share, as well as hit that notification bell. And yeah, guys, thank you so much and have a good one. Bye.